Welcome to ICEF Monitor's weekly news roundup, keeping you up to date with all the latest trends and developments in our sector. I'm Lucinda Bowden, and here are this week's top stories. Australia will open its borders to fully vaccinated international students with valid visas on the 1st of December. Also this week, the Canadian government has expanded its list of approved vaccines. English language teaching enrolments are expected to bounce back and rise through to 2023. And after more than 2 years of border closures, New Zealand will reopen to fully vaccinated foreign travellers in April next year. We have a new ICEF Podcast episode published this week where we discuss international students and online programmes in the new normal, and hear how the University of Arizona has used the lessons learned and investments made during the pandemic to create new study programmes that are expanding their market reach. Don't forget to subscribe to our website icefmonitor.com for additional market intelligence for international student recruitment. The Australian government will open its borders to fully vaccinated international students with valid visas on the 1st of December, replacing previous vague timelines. As of this official date, skilled and student cohorts, as well as humanitarian working holidaymakers and provisional family visa holders, will be welcome to fly into Australia without needing to apply for a travel exemption, as long as they are fully vaccinated and able to show proof of negative COVID pre-departure tests. The news is expected to see more than 200,000 eligible travellers return to Australia over the course of the next 2 months, and many of those will have student visas. This is the first wide-scale opening of the Australian border since the beginning of the pandemic, arriving in time to allow students already holding study visas for Australia to arrive in country in time for the start of the new academic year next February. Depending on which state they're travelling to, students may or may not have to quarantine. Universities Australia says that while there are unique state and territory quarantine rules for returning students, there is an increasing trend towards no quarantine for fully vaccinated students. At this time of recording, quarantine requirements remain in place in Queensland and South Australia. The Canadian government has expanded its list of approved vaccines. As of the 30th of November, international travellers with 2 doses of the Bharat Biotech, Sinopharm or Sinovac vaccines will be accepted. The Canadian government has also announced that as of the 15th of January next year, only fully vaccinated international students will be able to enter the country. This requirement will apply to students aged 18 years and older, and those under the age of 18 and who are not fully vaccinated will be subject to a 14-day quarantine as well as pre- and post-arrival testing. Vaccine acceptance is going to be a huge determinant of student mobility going forward, and this move by Canada puts the most commonly used vaccines in India and China, which also happens to be Canada's 2 biggest sending markets, on the approved list. You can head over to icefmonitor.com to see the full list of vaccines approved for travellers to Canada. A recent webinar from industry consultancy Bonnard takes a high-level view of ELT and predicts that English language teaching enrolments will bounce back and rise through to 2023. Trends analysis across 8 leading ELT destinations shows there was an overall drop of over 70% in terms of language enrolments from 2019 to 2020, but projections are for ELT bookings to return to around 60% of pre-COVID volumes next year in 2022 and gradually increase to 90% in 2023. Scaling back up is going to be a challenge, especially with respect to staffing and student services, including student accommodation. The main factors that are expected to most determine the pace of the recovery are vaccination rates in sending markets, vaccine acceptance in receiving markets, and rules for under 18 travel, which is especially relevant for European markets where juniors are key. The overall impression from the webinar discussion is of a sector that aims to be even more agile and adaptable going forward, and to build on its historical strengths to deliver great experiences for students and partners. After more than 2 years of border closures, New Zealand will reopen to fully vaccinated foreign travellers next April. Following a phased reopening of the country's borders for returning citizens and residents over January and February, fully vaccinated foreign travellers will be able to enter New Zealand from the 30th of April next year. New Zealand's COVID-19 response minister, Chris Hipkins, announced that even fully vaccinated travellers entering the country will still be obliged to follow some quarantine and testing requirements under this new plan. More specifically, This will entail a negative pre-departure test, proof of being fully vaccinated, a passenger declaration of travel history, an arrival test, a requirement to self-isolate for 7 days, and a final negative test at the end of the prescribed isolation period and before entering the community. And finally, the latest episode of the ICEF Podcast is now available for you to download via your favourite podcast player. This month we delve into the latest developments from Australia as it rolls out its border openings, look at how US enrolments are rebounding, and also ask what if the new normal isn't the normal we knew. The pandemic has made all of us near experts in online learning, but what is the future of online programmes now that borders have reopened to international students? According to the University of Arizona, the future is online, and the institution continues to offer a portfolio of online and blended programmes in what is truly a new normal. In this episode, Stephanie Adamson, Assistant Dean at the University of Arizona, talks about their post-pandemic online solutions and how these help the institution reach and enrol a larger and more diverse group of international students worldwide. They've introduced programmes that students can complete entirely online, as well as other hybrid options that are strongly linked to an on-campus study. Arizona is a really interesting example of a university that has used the lessons learned and investments made during the pandemic to create new programmes that are allowing it to reach a wider addressable market. That is beyond the traditional travel to campus for an entire programme international student. We encourage you to listen right now via your favourite podcast player app and subscribe in order to receive future episodes automatically. Well, that's your weekly news roundup from all of us here at ICEF Monitor. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with all the industry trends and developments in the international student recruitment sector.